completely start over. Pro tip, don't ruin your first one. Welcome and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are filming episode 2 in our Back to Basics series, where we are going to be making a tart crust. One of my favorite recipes to make this time of year is a lemon curd tart. So the first thing we're going to do is get all 3 of our dry ingredients into our bowl and get those mixed. So we have flour, sugar, and salt. All right, now that we have those combined, we're gonna add all of our melted butter. We're gonna wanna stir this in until it resembles a wet sand. And then to finish off our dough, we're gonna add our 1 egg yolk and then our vanilla paste. And it's a little trickier to get this to mix together, just given its texture. All right, I think that's about as much as I can get done with a spatula. Make sure everything is combined by hand. So our dough is looking really consistent. So the next thing we need to do, now that all of our dough is made, is press this into a disc in some plastic wrap and then refrigerate it for a minimum of 30 minutes. We want it to be able to stick together a little better. Because we used a melted butter, we're essentially cooling it until that solidifies again. So we're gonna pop this in the fridge and I'll be back in about, well, give or take 30 minutes. So we've definitely firmed back up. I don't know if you can hear. It's way more solid than it was before we put it in there. So we're gonna run into a lot of struggle if I try to roll this dough out now. So I'm gonna let it rest on the counter for probably 5 minutes. While our dough is sitting on the counter for 5 minutes, just kind of warming up a little bit, let's go ahead and prep our tart pan. So there's no real efficient way to line the sides. That I'm not so worried about, but I want to cut out a piece of parchment just to place into the bottom of this. Now, if you have a tart pan with a removable bottom, I recommend pulling that out, and we're going to use that as our guide to cut this at about the right size. Kind of like when you made snowflakes in elementary school, we're gonna keep folding this to create a wedge that we're gonna use for our base. Sticking this in just about the center. We can go a tiny bit wider. Let's see how that looks. There we go. Pretty? Perfect. I know this is like 50% butter, but let's just give it a little spray. That'll help hold this down. Got my rolling pin, my pan that we prepped, and then I'm gonna give the counter just a light dusting of flour. You can tell that our dough is still pretty cold. Okay, well, I think that answers my question, that it's not quite soft enough to roll out. Let's see if we can roll this out. Now, because of how much fat is in this, it keeps sticking to my rolling pin. Got a little bit of cracking. We can deal with that. Get in there. So I'm just making sure to kind of press this into each one of these little grooves. And then our next step is we're gonna use kind of this next layer of dough, build up our wall. Part of the reason I'm just cutting this away and pressing it into our pan is I know that this is relatively the same thickness as the bottom. So we're gonna end up with, you know, a similar bake time. We will come back through and trim off anything excess that's hanging up over the top. But as of right now, I'm focusing on pressing this into the walls and trying to make sure I join it with the bottom really well. We don't want it to be too thick throughout this little corner piece. I'll go back and tuck in a little bit more. All right, and we'll use our knife just to cut very clean off the top. That looks pretty good. For the recipe that I'm using it for, I actually need to fully bake my tart crust. Got to go in the oven without any filling in it. In order to bake it using pie weights, I need to line this with parchment paper and then put the pie weights in. If I were to do that right now, it's so soft that the parchment paper will actually start pressing into and like cutting into the dough. So I'm gonna pop this in the freezer for like 15 minutes and then move it over to the fridge for another probably 15 to 30 minutes. Before this heats up anymore, we'll go ahead and line it with parchment paper and our pie weights and then get it into the oven as soon as possible. My personal preference whenever I'm lining something with parchment paper is it's so stiff like this that I like to crumple it up, softens it a little bit. A little easier for me to press it in place. So I actually ordered myself some pie weights because I knew that I was gonna be baking this crust today. In the past, I've used like dry uncooked rice or beans if I had them available, but I wanted to spoil myself and get some legit ceramic pie weights. I'm actually gonna trim away my excess parchment. We're still waiting on my oven to preheat. All right, so now that our oven is preheated, I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in there. We're gonna bake it for 20 minutes before we pull it out, just to take out the parchment and the pie weights, and then pop it back in the oven to finish up. All right, just so we can get a better idea of what this looks like at this stage. Okay, ooh, okay, so we got a nice little brown crust. And if we were par baking this to go back in the oven once filling gets into it, I would just pop it back in there for about 5 minutes. But I want to fully cook this because when I make the lemon curd filling, the filling will be cooked, but the whole thing is not gonna be baked together. So we're gonna slide this back in the oven now and probably go for another 10 minutes. The edge is pretty dark already, so I think 10 minutes will be sufficient. All right. That's a bummer. Oh no. Well, I don't know what to do now. Oh, this is really sad. Oh no. I guess we're gonna take two and make it again. It's been a couple hours and now I've learned a couple things. My oven, I guess, is hotter and or more efficient than I expected. Do not take it out of the pan before it has cooled down. Because while the crust itself, it was pretty dark, but it was probably salvageable until I went to take it out to prevent it from cooking anymore, and it literally just fell apart. New tart crust. Take two. And let's pray this one does not fall apart too. Out of the refrigerator, tart crust, take two. It's only been like 2 hours since I broke the last one. The pie weights, I think, worked out really well. I would say we're gonna add some updated instructions on this one. Last time we did 20 minutes with the pie weights. I think we're gonna reduce that back to like 17. Because even at the 20-minute mark, the edge was starting to get real dark. So 17 minutes, take off the pie weights, and then I'll update you on how long we leave it in the second time. I'm not just going to blindly trust the 10-minute estimation like last time. I know better. Ooh, this is already so much better. Okay, straight out the gate, the color of this, 10 out of 10. So much better. Especially by comparison, it came out of the oven last time pretty dark already. Darker than I expected it to be, but it's been a while since I made this recipe. So to be honest, I didn't know. I didn't know what I couldn't remember. But seeing this now, oh. Doing our best to gently lift these out. Honestly, I feel like going with like 7 minutes and then checking it. It is kind of wet and a little bit tacky. I don't hate this. So far, so good. We're gonna put it back in the oven. Oh, I think this is gonna be so much better. It doesn't quite look done, but it's got a giant air bubble. So we're gonna poke that. If we look at going 17 instead of 20 and then 7 instead of 10, we're looking at a total of 6-minute difference, which out of 30, 20%, yeah, that's probably too much. So we're gonna add in those last 3 minutes, 17 minutes with the pie weights, and then 10 minutes without. And then we'll look at it, obviously. Oh, it looks perfect. It's just so much better. It looks great. Look at that golden brown, beautiful crumb. I was gonna make my lemon curd tart tonight. Absolutely not. But I will take pictures of it tomorrow when we get it done. So, big thank you for joining me today. Our episode 2 of our Back to Basics series, how to make a tart crust. I feel like we earned this one together. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.